धर्मक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे समवेतायुयुत्सवः
सहनं भवतु सहनं भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनाधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै. We always start with this verse. Let us sit down and study together. Through discussion, we sharpen each other's intellect. May we not bear any ill will to each other.
Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Today we are kind of coming towards the end of second chapter. So Krishna was talking about how your buddhi can be steady. And then that opened up the platform for Arjuna to ask that question here. I'll read the slok. Stithaprajñasya kya bhāṣā? How does he speak? How does a steady mind person speak? Samadhistasya keshava. Stitadhi kim prabhaveta. Kimasim prajeta kim. So how does he talk? How does he sit? How does he walk? Very simple question. For me, all he had to do, Arjuna, is to look at Krishna and see all that. But it's good that he asked that question, and we will have good answers from here on.
Previously, he was inspiring him to get up and fight because he was quite indolent at that point and quite overtaken by inertia. Then Krishna teaches him the relationship of soul and Brahman, the life source of the energy, and how impermanent things that are made of nature, all these things to inspire him. And then in 53, he changes course and tells him about the yogic wisdom. He tells him to having that understanding at the back of mind, and then one has to perform. So then Arjuna asks, so people who are even-minded or stithaprajñam, okay, or who are person who are equipoised, how do they talk, act, and all those things? In other words, how do they perform in this world?
Right, okay. Exactly.
And then he keeps on narrating the features of such a person and why they do the way they do it.
So, Krishna is going to first answer his question straight away. But before we get there, I just wanted to recap, another aspect. You said what we have seen so far, but it's all about buddhi. This second chapter has been about buddhi. Even Stithaprajña is about, how the prajña gets established, or how, the buddhi gets kind of, grounded in a person. So there are three terminology we have talked about, and I just want to bring it up and, for clarity. First of all, Stithaprajña is a state of mind, or a state of being. We talked about focus. Focus is like bringing attention to one point, a one-pointed focus, or, like we talked, Arjuna trying to penetrate the eye of the bird, or anything like that, where you need a total focus. So that's about attention span. And then we also talked about ek buddhi, which is decision-making. And all these three things have been very well explained and kind of established so far that we talked about. But one thing I wanted to bring up, which is not very far because it's also buddhi related, and the shloka that we always talk about, and it is relevant to this discussion as well. The one that we talk about, and I always wondered, tejasvinavadhitamastu. It's like we want to have our intellect, bright intellect, work together. But the second part of it, ma vidvishavahai, that, why was it there? That's what I always wondered. It's like our discussion, but there is a danger in any group discussion, whether it is 2 people or 5 people, when you start working there, the feeling of competition or feeling that, my opinion is better, is that the reason why it says, let's not be any ill will? I mean, what is your thought? I know you love this shloka. We do it
To
at
me,
the
it is very
beginning of
simple.
our discussion.
To me, it is very simple. A discussion turns into argument when ego enters and expectation enters.
Right.
That's it. Okay. We can have differing opinion. We can present pros and cons. But the whole idea that I win over you, okay, the discussion is totally different than debate. Debate is totally different than discussion. Okay.
Right.
And that is a fundamental difference we have to make all the time.
So that's why the shloka kind of safeguards you from, doing that. And I think Krishna brings it up soon, after he describes what a Stithaprajña person is, of all these things that, factors that prevent us from being a Stithaprajña. So how does this person behave? How does this person want? And I think his prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmanyevatmana tushta stithaprajñasya dochyate. I love this word atmanyevatmana tushta. And today I was a little, I asked you to come early, but then I thought, let me try this. So I put my phone away, the TV was off, and I just, went into my quiet space. And being that there in the quiet space all alone, I mean, the mind still wanders, but that is what I think we should all practice, to have a feel of Stithaprajña. Am I content with myself? And Amit, you spend a lot of time with yourself, walking around or sitting on the side of the lake. It's like being with yourself. We don't spend time with ourselves, number one. Even when we spend, we are wandering, somewhere else. So Krishna is talking about this Atmanye Vatmanatosha.
This verse is one of the favorite of mine. Basically, it tells you desires that come out, that manifest, they come out of our mind. And secondly, Atmane Atmatushta, when we understand who am I, how impermanent all these things that we see and the emotions that we go through, then we become satisfied with ourselves. It is an inward journey which makes our being quite blissful.
Yeah.
Because it is devoid of ego, desire, complex.
Because he said you are tushta, means kind of happy, right? Or satisfied or content. You're not looking for, watching another video or calling another friend. That's what we are always. Our day is filled with meetings or talking with somebody or surfing the web. And he's saying you can be content with yourself.
Yeah, to me, it is the blissful state. It is not the happiness of excitement.
Right.
It is a blissful state. So that is the most important part. When we know who we are, what our emotions are, what are these fleeting events are, okay, then we make an inward journey and become in a blissful state. Because we realize the ego and the desire it comes out of our mind.
Yeah. But the way Krishna is saying that doesn't even exist there, for a person who is this Stithaprajña.
That's right. He has surpassed those things.
Yeah. And the next one, he goes into a little more detail. He says dukh and sukh kind of become equal to him. And vita, raga, bhaya, krodha. So raga, bhaya, and krodh. So he goes into there. And sthitadhir. So kind of he's undisturbed by those. I mean, they will happen. He's not saying that dukh and sukh won't happen. It doesn't disappear. Like dukh and sukh is not going to not happen, right?
They will happen, but they are not permanent. Remember, when we talked about Buddhism, we talked about impermanence of these events and emotions.
Yeah.
And basically, all these emotions are temporary. If we look at the events and the things that cause our emotions, these are all fleeting things. So that's how we get over the emotion. If we have that thought at the back of our mind and we know exactly who we are.
So once you know that, and once you get that stage, then it doesn't disturb you.
That's right.
So you will still have to deal with it. You will still have a strategy. You will have to, if you have a court case, you have to appear in the court. Right? It's not that you won't appear, but you will be undisturbed by it. I mean, you will. That's the key part here, right?
Yeah. Through all these thicks and thin, you remain unperturbed and fully focused.
And then, he continues that, the same thing, Shubha and Ashubh also don't disturb you. He's not overly happy, like you were saying, happiness of excitement rather than blissful. And is not there to have, jealousy and all those things. And then he gives a beautiful example of Kachua, the tortoise.
Yes. And I think a couple of verses later, he tells you that most of attachment to sense object, and I say about sense object can be a living or an inanimate thing or an ideology statement, whatever we get attached to, because we like to listen to that, we like to acquire that. This
I know
sense of,
you have been talking about that, even from the beginning, but the Kachua example.
yeah, I'm saying this happens through all our sense organs.
Yeah.
Okay, all these bombardment of these afferent stimuli from our sense organs, but a Stithaprajña actually has control over these senses, and he withdraws it when he sees all these emotional turmoils.
So I love this example of Kachua, which is turtle, when it withdraws its limbs and everything, when in a resting phase. So I feel like Stithaprajña is a state of mind or a state of existence, a state of being where it's a resting phase. You withdraw all your senses, everything is within you, and then Atmanya Vatmana Atushta. But I always, wondered, even the turtle has to walk someday, right? So Stithaprajña also has to act. So when when the turtle needs to watch, Kachua means turtle, right? I mean, that's, or tortoise, I mean, whatever word we use, when it withdraws, it is in resting phase. But when it needs to walk, it brings out those things. So the same way, Stithaprajña, if it needs to act, it will use the appropriate tools, whether it is buddhi, whether it is, he is to talk, he may have to use his, the tongue and his, vocal cords. So for him, it's for utility that he controls.
I look at that metaphor in a little different way, because when the tortoise or the turtle feels that his danger, okay, he withdraws his limbs and he goes into a phase of totally inertia. Okay, so to me it means that when these kind of dangerous desires or the emotional upheaval comes, he controls his senses totally, and then later on he trots along.
No, that's a very good point, that it's not only withdrawing when he's resting, but also if he senses some sort of danger. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
But does that apply to Stithaprajña? Because I don't think danger is going to disturb him, like the one you are mentioning. Because if he's undisturbed, I mean, he will know how to deal with it, but that doesn't mean that he's disturbed by it.
That's right. He's mentally not disturbed. He is in, this person is acting, he's very active in controlling his senses. He's active in that sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's not kind of dead or unconscious. He's consciously drawing his senses within because he knows it's a difficult situation, but he's totally concentrated on that too. So it's not a passive act, it's an active process.
Right. So I love that part. But the next one is something that interests me a lot more. That is basically once you withdraw things, you feel like you are in a state of stithaprajña. But there is a word that is being used, rasavarja, rasopyasya, param drashtva nivartate. Is that you may have withdrawn, but you are still having that taste inside you. And I'll share you with my experience of this ras. It's very hard to describe ras in English. I don't know what your Gita translates it into in English, but I was in Kumbh Mela. Of course, I wanted to go there, and that was you can call it a desire, but I made it to Kumbh Mela. It was an adventure to get there, and then I was fasting. So I was fasting. My first day fasting was done. The next day, when I was going to break my fast, I was walking on, there is a lot of walking space there near the river. And there is a lot of food, stalls and people just walking, sitting, resting, changing clothes, everything is happening. And it's a big crowd there. But in that, path, there was a gupchup shop. So I was fasting and that gupchup was there. That ras of gupchup in my brain was, pretty strong. Exactly what this sloka says, that even when you are withdrawn, that ras, you may still have that ras. So much so, Amitabh, that when I decided to break the fast, the first thing I did, it's against all norms that I go to that gupchup or pani puri, whatever people understand, that goal thing. And I had 3 or 4 of that gupchup, even though it is dangerous, even from, medical point of view, that our stomach is not as used now to Indian food going from here. But I did go and taste that gupchup. So that is the ras, that I feel that, yes, I was fasting and my, the whole body was agreeing that, okay, I was in a withdrawn state, but I was not realized state. So there is a difference. There is this, you can practice silence, but are you silent? So yes, it's good to practice because that's the only way you get there. Or that's one of the paths you can get there, by practicing like meditation or fasting. And fasting is a very, it's not fasting just for losing weight, that happens too, but it's a kind of fasting, a little conscious fasting. So you are aware of feelings and things going on inside you. So this was my ras experience.
This is an important point that controls means you like something, you are attached to it, you walked away from it.
Yeah.
Okay. But only walking away is not enough. As long as your mind or my mind has that desire brewing there, we are still not free. Okay. And that's what it means. Okay. The desire in the mind has to be dealt with too.
I mean, that's the point he's making, that, the next verse says, Indriyani pramathini haranti prasabhammana. That, yes, you have to deal with that, This is important. Pramathi means it's very forceful. Those desires and the indriyas, he puts a lot of emphasis on indriya, especially the next one. Tani sarvani sanjayamya yukta asit matpara vashehi yashyendriyani tasya pragya pratisthita. So those who can control their sense organs, their pragya or buddhi, pratisthita is steady. This is a huge statement, putting so much weight on controlling your sense organs. I know you have been saying this ever since we started Gita. When you say desire, sense organ complex, ego desire complex, we are talking basically of controlling the indriyas, right? I want
That
this
is right.
car, or I want admission in a college. Don't let it, I mean, yes, you want to have an admission, you have to work for it. You want a car, you have to work for it. But when it becomes your kind of, pramadhini, it's like a force that is drawing you kind of downward, then that is the problem, right?
That strong desire takes away the mental equilibrium and proper evaluation of the situation.
Proper evaluation of yeah. I mean, because now your evaluation gets tainted.
Yes. In this whole section, I find a few things that are important. First thing, to know who am I, to know what is causing this attachment, the desire, and how to overcome by our analytical thinking and action.
Yeah.
And that's where it leads to.
It took me a long time to understand, Amitabh, this force, the power of these indriyas, or power of the sense organs and the desire. Because mentally you can say, okay, I won't do this. But when the time comes, the pull of that desire, pull of that sense organ is so strong. And the momentum, because you have been doing it, I mean, in our philosophy for lives, you have been doing that way, you have been acting that way for many, many years and lives, that it does take a strong will to not do it that. And you need that. I used to think that once you intellectually become strong, yes, you need to be strong to stop it. But once you become, mentally at this level, those things you won't do those. But I think there is more to it than just the mind control. You have to have that discipline,
It is discipline, and then it becomes your nature.
Yeah, but first you have to,
First discipline,
yeah.
no question about that. First discipline, and then it becomes your nature.
Yeah, and I'll come back to that fasting example I gave. I mean, I did 9 and Navratri fasting, and it takes a lot of discipline there, nothing else. I mean, it's not the hunger, not the food. You can have you can come with all the logic not to fast. But once you decide that this is what I have to do, and clear intention, that was helpful for me. But in our life, there is so many practices we can apply this to.
I can't refrain from a Bengali joke. so the Bengali joke says, "Who is really Stithaprajñasya?"
Yeah.
Okay, he is the guy who sells this golgappa in front of a girls' college. So during the lunch hour, all the young, beautiful girls are there. They're all having golgappas, the pani puris.
Yeah.
Okay, and the guy, surrounded by all these young, beautiful ladies, he still keeps count of each one's account and how many golgappas they have consumed.
Yeah. I mean, that is, America, I learned the word eye candy. I mean, so in front of all those, eye candies that he has, how is he keeping his cool to count the money part, right? Yeah.
In Bengali, we always laugh about it. It is the puchka wala or the pani puri wala who is the real Stithaprajñasya. He never gets diverted from his
No,
account.
I had not heard of that joke. No, thanks for bringing it up, because now my pani puri story is now fainted in front of this story. Yeah. So I think this is what I love about Krishna. He's so clear himself that he can bring this clarity to Arjun and bring this clarity to us. Remember where Arjun started? He
Yes.
was in tears, in the weight of this emotional weight that he had, this killing, dying, and not fighting. And now he's asking, what is this sthita pragya? It's like, what a change in 50 verses. It's like, that's why I really think it's a guided meditation, because now Arjuna is at a stage where he wants to experience that thing. And Krishna is described what a sthita pragya is, atmanya vatmanatoshta. He has described about, even if you withdraw senses, there is this ras element that is inside you. And now he's going to describe this, these verses are just amazing. I mean, they're such a good desire pathway. And it was true 5,000 years ago. It is true now, and probably it will still be true 5,000 years later. Of how it happens. How does it all start? Dhyayato vishayan punsa. You think about an object. And for example, I'll just put simple example, you want a car. Sangaste supajayate. So now it was just a thought that I want a car. And then you go and look at a car, it's a color, like I love red cars. So red car, and it has a status symbol, it is BMW, Mercedes, or even higher, if depending on what your reach is. And then you develop an attachment. Sangaste supajayate. So you think about something, you make an effort, and now you're attached. And suddenly someone else comes and buys that car and you can't get it. So there is a blockage now. Sangaste jayate kama. Now that attachment has become more intense, like kama. Kamat krobhat ho vijayate. And if it is not fulfilled, now you become angry. This is just simple 4 steps to anger.
I love this verse because to me, it is the cascade of emotional events when our desires are not met. How it stepwisely in a cascade leads to loss of rationality.
Oh, that's the next one, he says. Krodhat bhavati sammoha. You lose the rationality. Now you are kind of obsessed by it.
Yes.
Sammohat smriti vibhrama. And this, I think, is the most powerful stage of anger. The more you get, it's like clouded. Your judgment is clouded now. Now smriti is gone. So it may be you and me, or it may be you and your spouse, or it may be you and your son. All the good things that have happened, they're all kind of smriti, it's wiped out. All your, memory is gone. Now all you are is obsessed with this anger. Smriti bhranshat buddhi nasho. And the last one to go is your buddhi, that buddhi or intellect or wisdom. Smriti bhranshat buddhi nashat pranashyati. And when buddhi is gone, you are no good there.
You're basically irrational at that point.
Totally irrational.
This cascade is just wonderful psychology for me. It's a lesson in psychology, described thousands of years back.
Yeah.
And it is so practical. And it is so important for us to understand that how a little disappointment, it creates like a storm in mind
Yeah.
and leads from one disaster to another till it's a destruction.
Right. So I think the lesson here is, where do you put the check?
That's right.
You know, you can put a check at every stage. I mean, the anger has not been expressed yet. Hopefully, it will never be expressed. Like, you don't start fighting and killing.
These things should be explained right from the young age.
Yeah.
You see people getting mad, they put a fist through the glass window or on the wall or something like that. They cut their fingers, they cut their hand, and all those things get into the... It didn't solve the problem.
Yeah.
Okay? It didn't solve the problem. As you said, this is a cascade. One can stop it at certain point, okay, to mitigate it. But just like any cascade, if you can stop it at the beginning, prevention is 1 ounce of prevention is better than pound of cure. But as it goes from step to step downward, it becomes more and more difficult to control because you get gradually engulfed into it.
Yeah.
Not that it cannot be done, but serially it becomes difficult. So one who is a Stithaprajña, one who has got equanimity, one who is even-minded, they do not lose the rationality. They know they are established within themselves. They know their true nature. They know the impermanence of all these emotions, okay? And with rational judgment, how they can overcome these problems and how they can control the desire and attachment. And they can stop right at the beginning, okay? So the lesson is, yes, this is the cascade. It is much better if you are a Stithaprajña, you can stop it at the beginning. And as you said, you can put the block at the different steps. But it becomes difficult, in my experience, later on.
I think, Amitav, you said the right thing. You can experience a Stithaprajña if you practice enough, but to be Stithaprajña all the time, because even Arjuna was not a Stithaprajña.
Yes.
That's why he asked this question.
Yes.
So you can have glimpses, and Osho used to use the word minor explosion. So you can have this experience when you go into meditation or just sit quietly somewhere. You can experience that phenomena or that level so that you have a taste of it. You have a ras, kind of, the same thing. You can have a Golgappa ras. You can have a ras of meditation or Stithaprajña as well. But to stay in that stage all the time takes time. Until then, you will need to practice, discipline. You will need to keep your sense organs in control.
I can't help but give you an example from my own life, my earlier part of my career when I was extremely busy. So one night after I worked, I came back about 9:30. And when I got home, I saw my wife sleeping in the couch with a 1-year-old child. The other one, 2.5-year-old, is in the kitchen. He has opened a bag of flour and threw it all over the floor, and he was kind of dancing there and having a lot of fun. Okay.
Yeah.
And I got home. I see this mess all over the kitchen. I'm very mad. I almost went there to slap. I raised my hand, and then suddenly I stopped. I said, in my mind, I thought this kid is having great fun. So I took my camera and took a photo of that. Okay. And still it is on my wall unit. Okay. And it became a lovely memory. When he visited this time, he's now in his mid-40s, and I showed him that. That photograph is a constant reminder to me to control anger, and how a situation which could have been worse became a lifelong treasure.
No, that's an amazing story, Amitabh. This is what I see. It's like looking back at this second chapter, where it started, where Arjun was, and how Krishna changed the whole scenario. Instead of saying, "Oh, don't be like that. Why are you so sad?" It's like, instead of trying to comfort him, he took him on a different path. And you said the same thing. You changed your kind of perspective, and suddenly, that thing that could have been ugly became a happy moment
That's
or
right.
memory.
I still have that photograph on my wall unit. Whenever I get angry at any time, I just look at it, and then everything goes away. I said, okay.
Yeah, it's a reminder, right?
That's a wonderful reminder.
Yeah. And then he says, Raga Dvesha Vyuktaisya Vishayanindriyaischaran. How do you control those things? Prasade sarva dukkhana hanirasyopajayate. When you are happy inside, it becomes a totally different prasanna chetasho hyasu buddhi parthavatishthate. So the moment you change the perspective, so once the indriyas are controlling you, then that's the cascade, that's the pathway. But once you control the indriyas, it's a different pathway. So the whole thing is to reverse the control. Indriyas, or the man controlling the mind, versus buddhi controlling that, or you controlling that and using buddhi to, prosper.
I always say that from the Vedanta I learned that the ego desire complex.
Yeah.
Ego desire complex, and mind works at that level.
Yeah.
And our intellect, rationality, works from a little higher level, analyzing and all that. And even beyond that is a very important thing, is that we know who we are and how impermanent these things are. Okay. So that gives us the state of being rather than rationalizing it.
Mhm.
And that's extremely important.
Yeah.
Now, I remember one statement from Buddhism that says, the events that is happening around you will keep on happening.
Yeah.
But the results and your action changes when you change your perspective. And that's what it is.
It is that, but the power of these indriyas cannot be undermined. I mean, they can really, it's like take you away. And I love this. I mean, of course, there is so many verses we love. Indriyanam hi charatam yan mano nuvidhiyate tadasya harati pragyam vayuranav mivambhasi. So this example that is given in Gita, and Krishna gives this example of a sailboat. And it's like I used to sail on Charles River when I was in Boston. So I can totally get it. Once you have that, the sail there and the wind is blowing and you get the tack right, you are going. I mean, you can palto as well. But what he's trying to say, that even one sense organ and one desire can take away the whole boat, whether it is anger or whether it is vasana or whether it is, for foodie people, food. That one desire can take control of your whole being.
When Arjuna asks, Chanchalam he mana Krishna, the mind is so disturbed all the time, it is attached to the sense organs and all that. So it is almost like a rudderless boat. And the and the current will take you wherever the current wants to take you there. It gets worse and worse, and one may submerge and that kind of drown. So that's
Yeah,
very,
that's a
very
good point, because when you sail, as long as the control is in your hands, you can still control the boat, even though that wind is taking you. But
yes,
if you lose control, then you may be under.
yes. There is another verse in this chapter which says that the Stithaprajñasya, he's in the middle of all these things, okay, sense and sense object and all those things, but he has got the control. I think this is this particular verse, and he's always in control. That's all. So
No, that is the thing. So he's put so much focus on this indriyas, controlling the indriyas, at least in this is the pragya kind of
yes,
thought. And I think it's very relevant as well. And how powerful these indriyas can be. I think once we
yes,
understand that, understanding is important. That's what we are doing, concept, right? Concept understanding. So
yes,
understanding that this any indriya can control your whole being. And if you control the indriyas, your life is very much like a sthita pragya, or you are on that path.
it's like a big train going over a long rail line,
Yeah.
okay, and one little nut is loose and it derails. Having control over those senses, being aware of the desires arising from the sense objects, knowing that the mind is creating all these different images for us to like, and it is going to attract there. So our intellect prevents us from all these things.
And then, you have talked about this verse before. Ya nisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagarti sanjami. For those people, there may be night, they may be in darkness, or, it's like in emotions and all that. But Sanjami, the yogi is awake about those things. So a normal person, or is unaware of those emotions, but a Sanjami or a yogi is aware of all these things happening around him. Yasyam jagrati bhutani sa nisha pashyato mune. And for those people who are engaged in indulgence and like the normal affair, or even going to like what they feel like they're enjoying life, for him, the yogi, it's not enjoyment, it's kind of something that is in the way.
The people, it's a contrast between the Stithaprajña or the yogi, one who has got equanimity, who is even-minded, compared to his actions, okay, to the people who do not have this control. That's what it is. Okay, in different situations, they act totally differently. The one who do not have control, they get all blown away by their emotions and desires.
Yeah. So this control part that you mentioned, it's like the sthita pragya. Like, I don't know even if he needs to control, but the example here, apurya mana machalat prathishtham samudra mapah pravishanti adyatu.
Yeah.
So, like, he's saying that it's like all these rivers going and joining the ocean, and the ocean remains undisturbed.
Yes.
So this, I think, is a great example that this person, in a sthita pragya person, once you get there, everything is happening around you. The rivers are entering. They may be muddy, they may be clear, they may be coming with a big wave, but it all kind of enters the ocean and then just becomes one with ocean.
I think I should have clarified it a little bit more. Instead of saying that he is controlling, he has controlled it so much, it has become his nature, and now he is totally unperturbed by anything.
Unperturbed by it. That's the thing, that
Okay.
yes, things will happen. I mean, Krishna is in the middle of the war, and everything is happening there. It's like,
Yes.
and he remains, and I love that expression, prasannati. It's like he can smile in that situation.
Sure.
And
Sure.
Arjuna doesn't want to fight. He should be saying, wow, God, I mean, this is, I want these people to win, the good people to win. And Arjuna is saying, no, he's totally undisturbed, unperturbed. So he is probably the perfect example in front of Arjuna. But of course, he
That's
has to
right.
express,
So basically, it is doing the duty, doing the proper thing with an unperturbed mind, and when you have the global view of the whole problem.
Yeah. The next two shlokas take you to a different level, Esha Brahmi Stithaprajñasya Nainam Prapya Vimuhyati. He takes him to the Brahma stage, even beyond Stithaprajña. And to some people who explain it better, like Osho used to have these 7 bodies, and the last one is kind of the Brahma body. So Krishna doesn't go into those details, but basically it's an amazing chapter I think we have been through. It's all about buddhi, and that's why I do like, starting with this verse that you have, Om Sahana Vavatu, which is Tejasvina Vadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahay. So I think we have started on a good path, and so far we have not had that vidvishavahay. So let's continue that spirit, and I think ultimately Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So that is what Stithaprajña is. You have Shanti, inside, Shanti outside, and Shanti everywhere.
Yeah. Since you mentioned about the 7 bodies, I could not help but tell you, again, this thing, the whole concept of Panchakosham, the 5 sheets
Yeah,
of the
Panchakosh
body.
is different than the 7 bodies, but go ahead.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that the end is the Anandamaya Kosh.
Yeah, that's the Anandamaya Kosh in the Panchakosh.
That's the blissful state.
Yeah.
That's the blissful state of the yogi.
Yeah, some
That's
people say Sat Chit Anand, right? I mean, those.
Yes.
Yeah. Or
Ananda.
Satyam Shivam Sundaram. Those are all expressions of the ultimate. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's interesting that they haven't become like long-faced, sad people.
No, the other thing
But
is they're not.
Anand is there, right? Anand is there. Or Shivam Sundaram is there. So they are, once you get there, many people will think that, if I'm not happy, if I'm not sad, I'll be kind of, mask face.
This is a very important distinction to make in our mind, or whenever we are trying to impart what I learned.
Mm-hmm.
And I often have to explain to many people that what we call happiness and what we call blissful state, those two are different.
Yeah.
The happiness comes with excitement when our desires are fulfilled and all that. Yeah. Blissful state is a state of being. It's not a fleeting experience.
It's not a fleeting experience, but how do you express that? Krishna still smiles, Krishna still dances, Krishna still plays. Krishnam, Krishnam, Krishnam,